So, hi everyone. We're just going to start in a few more minutes. Just let everyone else join. So, we'll be back in a few seconds and start. In the meantime, for anyone that is connected, I will say that there is a question tab below. So feel free to ask any questions during the live conversation. And then at the end, we'll get to all of your questions. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll start. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and start, and then we'll just have everyone else join us. Whoever else is going to join can keep on joining. So first of all, thank you all for joining us today. I'm Mayan, Marketing Manager at FinOut, and with us today, we have the honor of hosting Steph, AWS's Awesome Optimization Solution Architect, and Ro'i Ravhon, FinOut CEO and co-founder. So if you've been wanting to know how to create a cost-effective AWS environment, you're at the right place. We will dive into the world of AWS and gain insights and strategies of how to do so. So let's get started. Ro'i, Steph, please go ahead and present yourself before we get down into AWS.
Sure, I'll kick us off. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Excited to kind of chat with you all today. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a Senior Optimization Architect at AWS. I work in a team called Optics, helping customers around the globe optimize their bill, look at financial strategy, and look at cost visibility, show back, all those kind of areas, alongside with having a Twitch show on AWS Twitch channel called The Keys to AWS Optimization, where I host every week on Thursdays, chatting about similar kind of topics.
Thanks.
And hi guys, my name is Ro'i. I'm one of the founders and CEO of FinOut. In my previous life, I was engineering director in a company called Logs.io and experienced like firsthand the challenges in scaling, a cost-conscious kind of environment. And at some point, we just decided that we need to build the solution that we really wanted to use, and this is like the reason that we stepped into FinOut. So former practitioner and now in the vendor space.
Thank you both. Okay, let's start diving into the conversation. And let's start off with Steph. On a high level, we are all very aware of the wide range of services that AWS has. So in which AWS resources or services do organizations commonly see cost overruns?
So I'll go for two. One is probably a common knowledge people expect me to say, and one maybe not so. So the first one is EC2. So a lot of customers, the majority of their spend is EC2. It often takes up a large percentage of it, and it is expected because you kind of move to the cloud from on-premise to utilize the compute power. The ways which people overspend can often be things like when they estimated their move to the cloud, they were like, oh, we'll definitely buy savings plans or reserved instances, and we'll make sure we right size and make sure we only use what we need. And those things aren't always the case. So what I see a lot from customers is they will move to the cloud and they'll say, oh yeah, we'll buy those savings plans. Oh, we'll do that next week. Oh, we'll do it next month. And they keep pushing it off. And so when they had that budget that they first were approved for compute, that's way higher than what they're expecting because they didn't actually commit to any of the purchases, because savings plans in our eyes give you a massive discount and it's just for using the service. So it is something that we see customers kind of miss out on. The other area of EC2 is right sizing for that. So they often move to the cloud and then they don't utilize their full capacity. So we actually see, I think there was a study done by the Compute Optimizer team, and they found that on average, EC2s are only utilized 6% of their CPU on average across all customers. Like 6% is so tiny. And so, go check out your EC2s after this webinar and see how much your utilization is. But I think people...
I think we lost Steph.
We lost Steph.
Yeah, we lost Steph. Sorry about that. She should be back here with us in a second. I think in the meantime, we'll just Oh, there we go. Steph, you're back with us.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. I just was like kicked out. I was like, oh no, what did I say? They heard me spoil. Amazon heard me say about the 6%, and they were like, shh, don't tell everyone that secret. So that is one thing. So recommend kind of they see things overrun in a big way is EC2. Now the other one, then we could jump onto this one because everyone's probably like, yeah, we know Steph, EC2. That spend is boring. The second one that I think people constantly miss and they constantly spend too much money on, they don't need to, is CloudWatch. I often talk a lot about CloudWatch because it is something that I love when you find that you can optimize it, because it normally doesn't actually impact your architecture at all. It's normally something someone's enabled, someone's kind of set up, that they haven't understood the concept, the ramifications of their deployments, and the spend can increase. So CloudWatch also is not just one service. It's so many different parts of one service. So you have kind of logging, you have your dashboards, you have your different monitoring setups. And so there are loads of little things that you can spend money on. So to kind of, I know I'm talking for a while, to summarize on that one, what I would do is actually look at your CloudWatch spend and see where the cost is coming from. It's most likely going to be ingested logs, which is where you're kind of taking in your logs into CloudWatch. And that is where people have either put too much information in their logs that they no longer need, or they've enabled more detailed monitoring, such as on EKS different control planes, or on detailed monitoring on EC2. And so they're ingesting far more information than they actually will ever use, and they are paying for every single one of those. So go check your CloudWatch and see what any costs that you could save on that. I have a bunch of really good resources.
Lost Steph again. Okay, we'll get back to Steph's resources when she gets. There we go.
I'm not doing editing.
Okay, she keeps on jumping. Not sure what's going on. Hopefully she comes back to us soon. Let's ask Rui, direct a question to Rui. There we go. So you've spoken to a ton of AWS customers in general and also FinOut customers. So from your experience, have you noticed similar AWS overspending patterns? Or if there's anything different, we would love to hear about them.
Yeah, so actually Steph touched on my main point, and I do want to reiterate it. So I think cost avoidance, especially around commitments, is one of the most recurring kind of issues that we see with many of our customers. So it's always like, should we buy commitments? Should we not buy commitments? Let's push this decision. Let's wait another month, another 6 months to see like how our usage pattern is actually like moving. And it's we always try to maximize our discounts by buying like the most restrictive saving plan or RI, and that's usually like obviously the one that we scare from the most because it's limiting us very much to what we can do. But by not buying, for a year, wait with the decision for a year, we're losing so much money that the realization of savings that we could have had just by buying the general compute saving plan on EC2 is just it's really not worthwhile. So my recommendation is something that we always tell customers, like, as long as you're not planning on leaving AWS in like the next 12 months, buy compute saving plans. There's really nothing you can lose by pushing that decision when you're going to have more certainty on the exact type of instances that you're going to use to maximize your discount. And while pushing that decision, essentially we're just losing a lot of money on behalf of AWS expense, which is like the most annoying money to spend. And the same is true with a bunch of like small opportunities that we can just have, and we're often not doing, like converting from GP2 to GP3, or terminating BS disks that are not in use, or images that we just think that someone might have need, or long-term S3 storage that we just think that it's a backup that we need to save for a rainy day, but no one really knows that. So cost avoidance is one of the biggest issues I think that we see with organizations, and it's just decisions that are driven by fear from not doing, and just costing us a lot of money. That I do think that is something that is very, very common throughout the industry.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, well, the next question is for Steph. We've lost her again.
I don't know what's happening.
Let's try this.
It keeps kicking me out. I'm going to try and go on and rejoin the event on a different thing, but you go for it and see how long it lasts again.
Okay, let's try this and just discuss how you would define a cost-effective AWS environment, hoping we don't lose you again. But let's try our luck.
I was really annoying because I'm.
Okay, we lost her. That was like a 1 second thing. Okay, so I think let's Rory.
Yeah, let's jump to the next one and then get back to Steph.
Exactly. Okay, so I know it's a little bit out of line, but we'll do what we can now. So we're just gonna go. Okay, back to Roy. Let's just say we're not gonna talk about Steph's description of an AWS cost-effective environment, but maybe Roy, you can let us know what it is in your eyes. How do you see this type of environment?
Yeah, so I think a cost-effective environment is an environment where developers and every practitioner that has a relation to cloud spend is well informed and aware of their decisions. So if we let everyone just do whatever they want without thinking of the consequences or being accountable for it, the chances of us to actually generate something that is considered cost effective is very very high. Maybe if Steph is stable, we can jump back.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Apologies, everyone. How would you define a cost-effective environment? Making sure you're using exactly what you need. I'll be really fast. And making sure that you know exactly where you're spending the money. They're the two key things. So understanding why your spend is changing, what you're spending money on, what resources are developing, as well as being able to know kind of in future what you're going to be optimizing. The other thing I would say is making sure everything is built through infrastructure as code is how I would define a cost-effective environment, because it's built for the purpose. It's not just built using manual kind of hands-on creation, because that is where a lot of people waste money, because they just deploy something and then they forget about it and they can't update it. They're not sure, they don't want to touch it, becomes a pet. So yeah, definitely being able to see costs and being able to manage infrastructure using infrastructure as code. Fingers crossed I'm stable. Probably
Fingers
not.
crossed. Well, let's hope we have you with us till the end. And then Roy, let's go back at you now. Of based on what we just heard from Stephanie, what common mistakes do you think companies make when trying to reduce costs?
Yeah, so I think going back to my previous point, not measuring engineers and not creating like budget owners for the specific parts of the system that the engineers are in charge of, usually tend to create like a spend culture. So we know that someone else is paying the bill. We know that we're not accountable for what we're doing. So we don't really have a good incentive on saving money. And actually, like the most cost-conscious organization I ever saw was an organization that tied cost optimization to headcount. So engineering directors had the headcount incentive in order to optimize on their spending and making sure that everyone is really aware of it. So I think the most common mistake is not measuring and not creating that kind of accountability. So if the organization is up to creating those kinds of incentives, pushing down the visibility into the specific practitioner level and creating that kind of culture of, hey, I'm an engineer and deploying code and I have responsibility into its cost, the same as I have responsibility for its SLA, really change the mindsets of organizations and tend to create like a long-running kind of culture of optimization. Because just buying a bunch of Horizon, great, it's fun, and just terminating and doing right sizing every year or something cycles, it's okay, but it's not. It's just reacting to stuff that happened, rather than just creating a new culture that actually maintain and foster that kind of cost optimization like view and mindset, which I think we're going to talk about a bit later with the FinOps question. But so I think that's the most common mistake that we saw with companies we work with.
And I think I'm stable now, so I'll just, I know I rushed.
Sure, for sure.
I'll add on. I definitely agree that getting the cost in front of engineers is so important. The same way that you prioritize kind of workload, patching, or any kind of security and compliance, it has to be in front of their eyes to know that there's an issue or know that it's their responsibility to take action. So I know there's a bunch of different people who are attending the webinar, but if you are a developer, like, go and take ownership of your costs, be responsible for it. Because if you're the person that saves your company money, you're the person who gets all the credit. It looks great. And if you're a FinOps person and you are managing all this optimization effort, don't feel like you have to do everything, because it's not your responsibility to be the person who changes an RDS instance to Graviton, or a person who deletes an unattached DBS volume. You're the person there to guide the engineers, to educate them and support them with doing this kind of workload and optimization stuff. So it's kind of two different roles, especially with the engineers. But yeah, just give them the opportunity to try and do these things. One thing I always suggest is, if you are kind of in a company that's like, we really need to focus on costs, and you're hiring, try and add kind of cost responsibility, information, education to onboarding. This is something people forget, because when you start a new job, your previous company may have done something different to your new company. So a good example is tags, a little bit off topic from cost, but when I used to work at my old company, we didn't tag anything. We tagged nothing. We used account structure to grab that information and then auto tag based on the CUR data. So there was no need to tag any resources. Any developer that left that company and went to a new company has gone a shock when everyone's like, you must tag this. And everyone's like, we didn't tag before. So you have to make sure that you educate those developers that is their job, that is their responsibility. And otherwise, how are they supposed to be measured on it? How are they supposed to be successful if they were never told to do this in the first place?
Steph, thanks for that. And I think that from there, we're going to also move very smoothly to the next question there we go. So essential strategies. You were mentioning, you gave some suggestions now to do with the other question. But what strategies would you suggest organizations to establish such an environment? Maybe you can also talk about the fact that, like, a lot of companies, common concern is striking the balance between affordability and then performance. Maybe you can also incorporate that in your answer, but your call.
Yeah, definitely. So I think to start with, one of the best strategies is I always start my customers with visibility. So seeing where you're spending money will allow you to adjust if you need to. So whenever I talk to customers, I'm always talking to them about kind of what have they got set up? Have they got a third-party tool? Have they got the Kudos dashboards? Are they using the Kerr? Are they using Cost Explorer? Or whatever. Try not to do the CSV version of the Kerr because no one wants to deal with that. But what I would recommend is kind of starting there and then deciding, okay, what are we doing with this information? Do we actually need to optimize first? Do we actually need to charge back first? What are the priorities of the business? And then working backwards from that. So if you are on a optimization focus, then think about, okay, well, what are our biggest services contributing? Maybe it is CloudWatch. And maybe you decide, okay, we're going to actively try and optimize CloudWatch. That is a much more sensible focus than saying we're going to optimize. Because if you just try and optimize your entire organization and all of the services, it's just going to be too many things flying in the air. So I recommend starting with one service at a time, setting one goal so you have an actual KPI that you're trying to get to, and then focus on that and sort of let everybody know, okay, this quarter we're focusing on CloudWatch optimization. Here's a lunch and learn. Here's a training. Here's a video. Here's a monthly reoccurring, like a weekly reoccurring status update. Maybe set some challenges, maybe make it fun, make it interactive, see if people can find ways in which they can automate it. By doing that, you'll set kind of a better environment for what was said earlier about kind of getting engineers to take action. It will kind of foster that as a more friendly environment than just yelling at someone you're spending too much money. So focusing on some kind of campaign as a strategy is always good to kind of narrow it down, because if you try and boil the ocean, it's just never going to go well. So I would definitely focus on that. Going off what you said about kind of the balance between performance and cost, it is so hard because from my point of view, I always think cost is really important, right? That's my job. That's why I'm here. You know, I love talking about cost optimization, but you get me in a room with a security person and we're probably going to be here about what's more important. A lot of the time it is security. But what will happen is it's really hard to have that balance, and it is dependent on the business. So I've had customers come to me say, we did lift and shift. We had to move to the cloud because our data center, we had not much more time. We just needed to push stuff in the cloud. And they're like, but now we're really spending money and we feel really bad. And I was like, look, if your goal was to move everything onto the cloud and that's what you had to do, it's fair enough. And if your goal is now, or if another customer says, you know, we have a new release coming out, we have to get it done, we don't have time to optimize. If that is what the business cares about, that is what the business cares about, okay? When I first started doing cost optimization, nobody cared about it. And it was just me being like, oh, you could save some money. And everyone was like, Steph, go away. We have things we've got to build. We've got stuff we've got to do. So please, what I recommend is trying to focus on that balance in figuring out where the line is, like what is the priority at the moment, but also improving how you integrate with engineers to do that kind of thing. So this is kind of going off topic, but when people kind of have those like, oh, I feel like I'm fighting with engineers, they're not doing what I say, it's often because you're providing information in a format that's not relevant to them. And so it's hard for them to have additional work. So when they are weighing up the difference between doing a new release and kind of deleting an idle EBS volume, the EBS volume is going to get pushed aside because it's probably in an Excel sheet in an email that no one cares about. Whereas if you have integrated into their kind of ticket process, if you're doing sprints or Jira tickets or whatever way you're doing it, if you have that ticket with all the information in, the priority and the effort, an engineer will say, oh, that would take me 5 minutes. Let me just go do that now and get that ticket cleared off. And then I've done more work for my sprint. And it can be prioritized by the people who are in charge of prioritizing. So it kind of, again, takes the onus off of FinOps practitioners, who are the ones who feel like they're fighting with everyone, to actually the kind of Scrum Master and things like that. So that was a kind of few different anecdotes and bits, but hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you, Steph. Roy, if we talk specifically about FinOps and creating such an environment, how do you think FinOps can help businesses in achieving a cost-efficient environment?
Yeah. So first, I want to say that I really agree with every word Steph just said, and it's a great segue for this question. That cost management, it's more about culture than like anything else. We actually had the point that as a few customers like reach out to use FinOut, and we said like, hey guys, you're not ready. Like you need to first decide that you want to practice FinOps. You need to have some kind of organizational buy-in. You need to have that kind of mentality. A tool is not going to help fix your problem. A tool is a way to or something you can utilize in order to help with practicing FinOps, but it's not a goal on its own. So I think the FinOps Foundation has done a really remarkable job in codifying like what FinOps is and what steps do we need to take as an organization to reach like the next level of maturity. And as Steph mentioned before, like we can just decide that you want to like do FinOps across the organization and when we're done. No, it's a multi-step process. There's multiple different capabilities and domains, and there's lots of steps within every capability with multiple maturity levels. So we can be extremely advanced on one part of the organization, but like very, very early on another, and it's okay. We don't need to try to level out, or we don't need to like implement the entire book at one sitting. So we need to start to understand like what are the domains and capabilities that are really important for us at this point. And it's perfectly okay that 2-3 months from now, the answer is going to be completely different. And we need to adapt to that. FinOps is something that is moving, and there's no like clear path from where we are now to a better, more cost efficient place. Is the process is something that we need to embrace as an organization. It takes time, and it's a never ending kind of cycle. So now that we improved our commitment based use, and now we got to the place that we're extremely better at that, and now we have so much more improvement to do with budgeting. And once we will finish with budgeting, we will discover that we degraded in the committed use discounts, and we need to start to get back there because there's another company we acquired or a new teams that changed their workload. So there's the FinOps cycle between the optimize, operate, and inform that's constantly running, and we need to be very aware that it's a process that takes time. And in FinOps.org, there are so many amazing kind of materials that can really help us with that. So both in the book and the website, there's lots of volunteers from the community that adds invaluable information there. So I think like embracing FinOps, if you're not sure what you're going to do, so FinOps is a great framework. It's not the only one, but it's a great framework to use when going to the next level of optimizing and managing our cloud spend. Yeah, thanks, Steph. And there's great certifications within the FinOps Foundation as well, and a great community and Slack channels. So if you have a question, if there's, you need support from your peers, you want to understand like benchmarking in companies the size of yours, or even just, get a certification from the community that, you speak the common tongue. So I think the FinOps Foundation is a really good resource and something that every company should invest some time in.
Yeah, the FinOps Foundation. If you didn't see the chat, pop the link in. Been a member. I think I'm one of the original members. I think the first 11 or something weird like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that I found that somewhere, and I was like, I think that's true, but I've been saying it. So I'm sure they don't mind me saying that. But yeah, really recommend joining. Is a great network, especially on the Slack is super helpful just to find information, and the events in person is great. They even have a board game is there, and if you look closely, you'll find my name in the board game, which is fun. Cool thing. But just to echo what you said about like a FinOps tool. That you kind of push people back and say you need to take this seriously. I always say to my customers, like a tool isn't going to solve your problems. It's not going to do FinOps for you. It's just a really good way of enabling you to get more access to information or do recommendations or see what's going on in a much more structured and visible way. So yeah, it's great to kind of hear you echo that kind of concept. But yeah, just shout out again, the FinOps Foundation, always fun to learn more from that area. And I like the way you said common tongue instead of just like common language. I feel like I should start using that. It sounds way better.
Now it's nerd territory here, so it's okay.
Steph, thanks for your input there also. And Rui, thank you very much. So before we kind of sum up and start answering a few questions, Steph, Roy, is there anything else that you would like to add to this discussion? Something that we didn't have time to, Steph, because of the jumping, if there's anything that you didn't kind of speak about and you want to, that would be great now. And if not, we'll just go ahead and answer a few questions.
I'll jump back to sorry, apologies. I think I shared a link out that was like go and join, and I think it was my link, and people were trying to join, and then it was kicking me out, so that was a problem. So apologies everyone for the start. But one thing I think I'll also add, which was I think the question earlier about kind of being a successful kind of optimization account. One other thing is that I always class people that are successful as people who don't get bill shock. So when I say bill shock, I'm talking about getting that surprise email or notification, or not even a notification, you probably didn't get a notification, is one day you log into your Cost Explorer or whatever account and you see a massive spike in your bill. This actually happened to me like a week ago, and I was so annoyed at myself because I hadn't enabled budgets. And what it was I'd actually enabled a service in QuickSight that was a monthly subscription that was $500 a month. Now, in my tiny little demo account, I was not spending anywhere close to $500 a month. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I did deploy budgets. Sorry, that's how I found out about it. I was like, what's this £500 spend? And I jumped in and I figured out, I've weirdly enabled this QuickSight thing because I thought it was something else and I didn't realize how much it was. So I was able to troubleshoot and go and turn it off. But if I'd have not had that budget enabled, then I would have been spending every month like $500 without realizing it. And the amount of times we hear this from customers where you enable something, someone deploys something they shouldn't, they were just testing, and they don't realize it until it's far, far too late, is so frustrating for people. So one thing I really recommend doing is setting up some kind of alerting, whether that's billing alerts or kind of cost anomaly detection, budgets, or even the ones in CloudWatch, just so that you have some kind of notification of what's going on in your spend. I don't know if people are super familiar with the two, but with AWS, you have budgets, which is like a flat number. So if you get close to that number, it will ping you and say, hey, you're going to reach a budget. You shouldn't spend any more money. And then there's also cost anomaly detection. So that will look for if anything suddenly spikes that was unexpected. So for example, if you keep spending money every month increasing on your EC2 costs, anomaly detection is not going to flag it because it's a gradual spend. Whereas if suddenly your CloudWatch costs kind of spike one day and it wasn't predicted, then it will alert you. They're free services and I can't implore people to do it enough. It's any new AWS accounts get anomaly detection by default, but budgets you still have to enable, or any legacy accounts don't have it. So something else that in any platform I get on, I often just try and preach people to try and use those services, just because from experience, it's nice when you catch something before it goes too far.
Thanks, Steph. Roy, anything else to add before we sum up?
No, echoing a lot of what Steph just said, like fixing something when it's small, it's a lot easier than react to a huge change that we had no idea that is coming. So like early reporting, like in medicine, saves a lot.
Definitely. Great. So I want to, first of all, thank you for an amazing discussion. I hope that you all at least took one thing away of how you can help create a cost-effective environment in your organization. I see we do have one question here so far. So the question is, given how important and broad the notion of cost optimization has become, don't you think it is high time AWS put all these resources together to form a certification track?
Love the hard questions. I'm going to take that one. Thank you. So what I would say is the please feed that back to your account team. I'm assuming you have an account team. That's my first answer, or create a spec rec requesting it. That is a very much a for Amazon answer. What I would also I do also say is that the FinOps Foundation have a bunch of great exams. I do see that Amazon is taking this more seriously. We did have discussions of an exam previously. I think the divide is up until now, the role of a FinOps practitioner was not clearly defined or seen as an industry standard. Several years ago, when I first started looking at it, it was kind of like a bit of a job someone did as well as being an engineer or as well as doing finance. Now it is definitely expanded to being something a lot more serious. I look on the Slack channel on FinOps Foundation for the amount of FinOps jobs has grown substantially in the last kind of 2 years. And so I think feeding that back, I'll take that away with me as well, that we should look into getting certification. But like I said, anybody on this call that agrees, raise it with your account team. That is the way we make change. We do listen to customer feedback. And so I'll pass that along as well and see if we can push it. Because I agree, I think it'd be really useful to have a kind of standard exam. I would also just caveat that the SA exam does have a cost element to it. So there is a large portion of that in the solution architect exam and the practitioner exam. So I think that's where a lot of the defined best practices are. And it's whenever I've done the exam, it feels like it's a large portion of the exam. So I do kind of encourage you to take that part of it as part of it. And just a reminder, because what we said earlier is that engineers, it's part of their responsibility to be cost best practice. And that's why the cost pillar is existing in the solution architect part of the exam. So it kind of is already in there, but yes, there is no dedicated FinOps exam at AWS at the moment. But yeah, share that feedback.
Thanks for answering that question, Steph. And we have one more question here before we finish up. Is are you going to reInvent in November? I know that FinOut is. Roy, if you want to add anything on that, and Steph,
yeah, so I'm going to be all over the place there. I've got 3 talks, 2 in the background. I'll be putting on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn to be sharing more. But you can search for me there. I'll be on the booth, on the CFM booth. I'm doing a talk with a couple of different types of talks. And I'm also going to be doing something called Peer Talk, which is where if you would like to have a conversation one-on-one with me, there's a little area which we can book out to do. I was just on a call about that. So that'll be coming soon. I do have a question generally for Raheed, but do your reInvent stuff and then we can come back to it.
Yeah, so we're also going to be at reInvent. We're going to have a big booth and staff, and also like a very cool after party. Maybe Mayan can share the sign up link. So,
I've sent the link via chat. Yeah.
So that's going to be there's a formal FinOps Foundation event, and the day afterwards we're having our non-formal event. So it's still going to be like a FinOps practitioners kind of vibe. So if you want to go talk shop and get drunk on our expense, so that's going to be a great way to do that.
That's the best sales pitch. Get drunk and talk about FinOps. It's a risky conversation starter.
It's a business model.
Yeah. For sure. I would also, if anyone else has questions, because I know we've got a bit more time, but really, I was going to say, it's not often I get to speak to kind of senior people in these third-party apps. So I was wondering, like, have you got any recent kind of customer success stories you've seen that you think are really inspiring? Because I think sometimes with these conversations, it's nice to hear, like, we keep telling people how to do stuff, but yeah, have you got any good examples of customers that have had like a really good optimization or anything like that from recent like weeks?
Yeah, so not sharing specific names.
No names.
I always love to see organizations that we just had a recent success with one of our customers that managed to reduce 30% of the first year using FinOut, and not by running the right sizing kind of stuff, because like saving on right sizing and Arise, that's the easy path. But they actually managed to save 30% just by creating a good FinOps culture. So creating, they created multiple different dashboards, sent them, daily to engineering team, great budget owners within the director level, and it became kind of gamification kind of thing. So people just started to look at cost as a game. So there was a shame wall, like a dashboard of like the most spending apps. and people just didn't want to see their names there, and they started to create that. They started to implement unit economics to start to measure like a relative cost, which also like fundamentally changed the way that they were thinking about cost management. We haven't touched it a lot here, but it's a more advanced subject. But spending more money for AWS is great, but we want to make sure that we're spending the right amount of more money, right? So we need to grow at a pace that makes sense for our business, and encompassing unit economics and relative cost within our like daily narratives and KPIs that we're measuring really makes a huge difference, and really change, that specific organization, like complete point of view. So there's a lot of more advanced FinOps concept that can be implemented, and I'm super happy to see organizations that actually take FinOps, its culture, into something that actually makes a big viable difference into the business. And JR from the Finance Foundation always says, FinOps is not about saving money; it's about making more money. And I do really believe in that statement. I think it's something that is very, very powerful and can really change, the landscape.
Yeah, that is, I think, so good that you see the change from kind of seeing the data is just like very impressive. That just 30% by like actually making people care about FinOps is always really impressive. And the wall of shame, it's interesting. There's a bit of a divide, I think, in the world of FinOps, which is like the wall of shame, or like the wall of, I don't know what the better word of it, of success. Someone just put in the chat, shame. I feel that, I can hear that over my head. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of like carrot or stick. And it does depend on the vibe of your, I don't use the word vibe, the vibe of your organization. What I mean is that sometimes if people need to be, so I'll use a security example. So like my old company, their patching was terrible at one point. And what happened was every day at 8 a.m., there was a call with the senior director and all the heads of the cloud department. And they had to go through this Excel sheet that said, had they patched it? If not, when was it being patched? And kind of do that. And it was very much a kind of stick method where they had to get up early for this call. They were kind of being shamed in front of each other. A lot of the time it became just repetitive and no one wanted to do it anymore. But because they had to get this list done, they made them do it. And so it was effective, but it was just like not the best culture. Whereas some people really succeed with the kind of give them carrots. We had Cap One come on my Twitch show, and they talk about, I think he gave people cake, so carrot cake, for example, for awarding great optimization opportunities and when they've done success stories. So putting people on a pedestal when they've done really well is another way of kind of alternating that. So it kind of shows that when you do something good, you get praised for it, because who doesn't love being told they did something really well and a pat on the back? So I think when it comes to those methods, see how urgent it is. If you're trying to do something now and it has to be done because it's really important, maybe the stick method is good. And whereas if it's something you want to leave people to do over time, so more of that kind of campaign stuff, then I definitely think the kind of cake method might work better.
Yeah, completely agree. It's really really depends on the organization, and I think in general, what's nice about metrics is that they start to be important the more you ask about them. So it doesn't really matter like if it matters or not, but if someone from leadership is going to start to ask a question around a specific metric, like who is the most wasteful team, or who is the most like the team that saves a lot of money, or what's the price of unit economics, the entire organization starts to get aligned towards those metrics, even if it didn't exist. So it's all a matter of just measuring something to start to create that reality.
Yeah. This really good point about the kind of senior leadership aspect to it. If there's someone really senior, now someone really senior might not know what compute unit cost is. So one thing to kind of side, if you are listening today and you're thinking, I'm trying to get my senior leadership team to, or the kind of C-suite guys to take action and care about this kind of thing, I would put it into terms they understand. Things like users, things like products, things that are actually tangible to those people will be more well received rather than just an arbitrary like unit KPI. For your developers, for your FinOps, for your finance, 100%. Those kind of individual story kind of unit costs are perfect, but user unit costs like per user or per click or per transaction. One of my customers is telco. We did per SIM. One of my friends' customers is cars. They did per car. And so what that means is when it comes to senior leadership, you say, we sold like this many cars for 100,000 and next month we sold them and we made 110,000, they're going to be like, oh, do that again, make more money. Like you said, they're not good about making more money. So really encourage people to make KPIs that are tangible, because more people will care about them.
Steph, thank you for that additional question. I think that was an amazing way of summing this whole thing up and ending. So thank you so much for that. We got to hear some more aspects to this whole thing. So thanks for that. And just thank you both for being with us today. Steph, thank you for joining us. It was an honor to have you here. And again, I've added the link to our party. Whoever's going to reInvent, don't miss out. It should be an evening full of fun. So sign up through the link. And thank you, and see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Steph.
Thanks.
Bye, guys. Thanks.